where do we find talent? And that's a big thing in our world, especially being so niche of an application. How do you find talent? And one of the things that we like to look at is, hey, let's get somebody with an engineering mind, such as yourself, right? Engineering or architectural mind that just knows buildings and knows the X's and O's, so to speak, of the construction world, and just get them on site, just to learn. And we think that could be a kind of the 1-2 punch, to really get good competent people out there. Because I mean, you're a perfect example of it, right? I mean, you come in with a very high level of understanding of the construction world and building in general, and then couple that with some field training, and you're pretty lethal as far as your effectiveness in the field. So to that point, how long do you think it takes? Say somebody coming out of college, I have a bachelor's in engineering. Maybe I don't want to work in an engineering firm. Maybe I want to get into the sales side with a manufacturer of building products, right? How long do you think it takes field time with chemical grouting until you're kind of up and running and you really know the nuances of a lot of what happens out there?
That's a tough question. I mean, I'll kind of use myself as a little bit of an example because, while I'd been around it for a while, because I had gone my own path for a period of time right out of school, it was kind of just there and didn't really know much about it. I think in doing it every day, it was a good, again, with my educational background of being an engineer in a civil engineering space, knowing building and construction, it took me a good 2-3 months of everyday hands-on application to really understand the limitations, the successes, how it works, why it works, where it's going, which product is going to be most successful in which application. Before it was, I was comfortable, being able to see the solution before I even put a drill to the wall. And the unfortunate thing is that, I was able to rely on years of construction experience and being in these, green builds. Whereas somebody who might be right out of school has never been on a site, has never thrown on the hard hat and the vest and walked around. So there's a whole learning curve to that as well. But again, the field experience, I think, is critical in any industry, and especially as you get more and more isolated niche industries, your opportunity to learn it is few and far between on a study level. And so the field experience becomes your classroom. So when we bring people on, in turn talks about finding good people, if we find somebody who has any experience in injection grouting, it's a diamond in the it's a needle in a haystack, so to speak. So there's a significant training curve on our end to bring talented people who have these construction experience to a level of being able to be proficient in the trade. So it's a tough thing because everyone's individual, but the more time in the field, I think, is critical because of, again, if you happen to be taught it in some educational level, it was a blip on the radar, and it was quickly moved past as part of a envelope education study. Whereas the actual time in the field is really becomes your classroom, like I said.
Absolutely. And to your point though, or kind of to the point, 2 to 3 months was effectively your gut visceral reaction there to time in the field. I mean, that compared to some other industries, that's not all that long, to
no, but that was an everyday application too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you take like a manufacturer rep, for instance, who might be on site once a month for a few hours, right? To add that time up to be 2 months, constant trained would take years, to become that well versed.
And like anything, I've lived in that sales role as a manufacturer's sales rep. And while you may know the spec sheet, of your product inside and out, um, that doesn't tell you the whole story of the product that you're going to use. It's when it's applied in the field, whether it's a pump or a truck or a crane or a chemical grouting. Uh, it's the performance in the real world beyond the spec sheet that really tells you, or completes the picture of your education on your product. So for those who are on the manufacturing side, time in that field actually doing the work, I think is one of the most critical parts of it.
For sure. I mean, we we liken it to a mechanic, who can listen to an engine and give you a pretty good idea of what he's up against. Very similar in the field. Charlie, who I mentioned, I think he's been in a field services role for 15, 16 years as well, and he can kind of tell you what's happening by the way the hose is jumping, for instance, on each stroke. In the sound of the stroke, for instance. And, there's a lot of that mechanic sort of level field support that just isn't that readily available in the chemical grouting world. We put Charlie in the field services director role because, and this isn't, this is not intended to go into a sales pitch, but just to your point that, a lot of manufacturers are kind of shying away from the field support, where you have to be out there seeing so many customers and making so many calls. And, it's like a telemarketing, solution sometimes for an industry that is so critical, for accuracy in the field, so I agree with you completely. And we actually tell our guys, you said you had experience on the, on the sales side of it from a manufacturer. And we tell all of our guys and girls, get in the field and spend time with the contractors. I mean, I still go out in the field. I was just on a job, a couple of Fridays ago. We were doing polyacrylate gel injection. I was on the gun, and I was saying to the technicians, you guys tell me, instruct me a little bit what you see out here. Cause the couple of people that were out there had significant experience. And to your exact point, manufacturers can read spec sheets and tell you, little nuances of performance from a TDS. But until kind of what the gun feels like, the guys in the field are still probably head and shoulders above you.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's always tough to be in that role where you're supposed to be the expert and asking for help. And so I've been in those situations. It's always uncomfortable as being on the manufacturer side to say, well, okay, what would you guys do here? And,
Right.
Yeah, but the guy with 30 years of experience